Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our latest Cardiff Life Business Club, this time on the nighttime economy, which clearly has a wide impact beyond the immediate hospitality, retail and arts, much of which we'll be talking about today. Continuingly weird times for us all, times when we're just having to get on with it as best we can, incredibly tough for those involved in any aspect of this nighttime economy, which one way or another is a vast number of people and businesses. Good luck and very best wishes to you all. We'll be hearing this morning from Richard Hyatt, City Centre Management for Cardiff Council. And by the way, please do use this opportunity today to ask questions of the council. They're very keen to know what you as business owners wish from them through using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Also, Anna Garrett, co-owner, one of the founders of the Coconut Tree, a very successful new group of restaurants, Sri Lankan restaurants, and we'll be hearing their story and indeed their near-term plans as well. Graham Farrow, Artistic Director of the Wales Millennium Centre, amongst the most affected, and there's some quite startling statistics which we will go through, but also to hear the plans for next year as far as any plans can be made at this juncture. And Jay Page of The Botanist, Cardiff. The Botanist opened maybe 7 weeks, I think it was, before the first lockdown happened. And again, how it has been for him and his team in these times. A few points before we come to the main event. Like many, we have been struck by the support that so many Cardiff restaurants, cafes and food producers have given to the remarkable free school meals campaign initiated by Marcus Rashford. This clearly is a tough time for all in that sector, but they have stepped up. And we also want to play our part as Cardiff Life. So we've announced that any Cardiff restaurant, cafe, food supplier will have a free ad in our next issue. It's our way of saying thanks to them, but also giving support in these times. Please let's all hold dear to that karmic mantra. Do good things and good things happen. Cardiff Life, meantime, is fully back and thank you for all your support. We're mutually dependent on that support. It means that we can champion your business, your areas and play our part to the full, supporting businesses in our city. And please note, we've significantly increased our home distribution of all our magazines to ensure they're getting into the best hands. Big news on our events. Cardiff Life Awards, the announcement at 12 o'clock today, so don't tell anyone, but we will be running those on May 13th at City Hall. We put it further back in order to make sure we've got a very good chance of running in real life when we can all come together again. A quick shout out for a few of our sponsors, Platinum sponsor Marsh Commercial, plus Cardiff Blues, For Cardiff, Genero, Hawkins Thomas, Wealth Management, Park Plaza, Regis and WSET. Nominations will open in a few weeks. And I'm sure many of you will be thinking about, when it comes to nominating, what you mean after this year? Yeah, I mean, everyone has been in the same position. And so as ever with awards, it matters in the relative performance rather than the absolute. We know it's been a tough year for pretty much everyone. We will have a separate additional question on how you have been navigating through this pandemic time as well. Additionally, the Cardiff Property Awards, we will be announcing this one shortly as well, I think tomorrow, in fact, formally, will be part of a bold new 3-stage conference, full details out tomorrow, combination of keynotes, networking and excellence through virtual awards, which will be live presented. And again, a quick shout out for our sponsors, including once more Marsh Commercial, Savills, Sanctuary Financial Planning, TSR Legal and Wilmot Dixon. Nominations close on December 3rd, so there's a month or so to go on that. Please look out for our next Cardiff Life Business Club, Tuesday the 15th of December. It's a charities and Christmas special. We will see how we all are at that point with that then 10 days to go pre-Christmas. And we'll be running Cardiff Life Business Surgeries, deep dives into key areas with vital insights for free on key sectors from leading companies. If you've got a professional service that will have value for others, and you're looking for more business, frankly, aren't we all, please talk to us. Right. The nighttime economy, a key part of our living culture of the city. I'll interview each of our 4 speakers briefly, then throw it open to panel questions and do as I say, please use the question option so we can get some other people asking questions. First up, if I could ask Richard Hyatt to step forward, City Centre Management for Cardiff Council. To you, Richard.
Good morning, Greg.
Yeah, how are you doing this morning?
Very good, thank you. Very good. Bleak day outside, but we're bearing up under the strain.
Well, bleak day outside, but some bright thoughts inside. What do you reckon?
Well, that's what I'm hoping for. And as you said, we're really hoping to get some feedback from business and from the general community around nighttime economy to see what we can do to help as an authority. Definitely.
Yeah, well, talk us through your perspective on the current levels of trading and confidence in the city right at this time.
Okay, I mean, from our perspective, it was a challenge to try and we got two challenges really. We've got to try and promote the city centre as being a safe place to visit, firstly, so we can encourage people to come in and spend money and feel that they can do that in a safe way across retail, hospitality, across all sectors really. That was the challenge coming out of the full lockdown initially. We looked at how we could, what measures we could put in place to give people the confidence to come in. Initially, obviously, but when we came out of lockdown first, it was outside only. There was no inside. The hospitality businesses were tied to outside seating only, and we looked carefully and how we could react quickly to that, and we introduced schemes like the Castle Street Cafe, which helped businesses provide food to a central, safe area. We increased the spill out spaces around the city, which is what I was dealing with specifically, and we suspended the tables and chairs license. So we twofold really. We needed to make sure that we had a safe place for people to come and felt safe to be in, but also to try and give businesses the opportunity to use what little space and the little opportunities they had really around their premises.
And just to take that latter point, all planning authorities, all councils are facing this exact issue, which is perhaps in these terms, you've been more liberal in these times, allowing more flexibility and freedom and so on. How much that might endure the other side when we're eventually, whatever the word through means, but anyway, when we're past this, do you think there will be a greater use of city space than hitherto, because you will have seen and the traders will have seen the benefit of that?
Oh, I totally agree. I think what we've seen, especially in certain areas of the city centre, is things that work really well. And I think probably without this happening, we wouldn't have been able to sort of test it, I suppose, in a sort of controlled manner. I think there's always a fear that, if you roll things out under full sort of normal everyday circumstances, they might not work. But this is proven that businesses have been really, really sort of keen to use their outside space. They've done it really well. I think they've certainly used areas of the city that we haven't thought could be used in that way before. And also, moving forward, I mean, we've taken on board a lot of that. We're looking at how we can maybe remodel High Street and St. Mary Street to look differently. We're in the process of remodeling parts of Castle Street, extending the pavement out on the shop side, which will help businesses directly there, and the same on Westgate Street. So we've definitely moved forward because of the lessons we've learned. Yeah, definitely.
So it's a slight paradox, but in a way, there are positives from this. It's as though this great pause has also been a great accelerator, that it's brought forward things which may not have happened otherwise.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's really sort of it's changed the way we look at the city centre, I think, as an authority, and I think it's changed the way businesses look at it. And I suppose none of us really know what the next steps are going to be, and I'm probably sure you'll ask us that, and people will ask us that in the coming questions. But no one really knows, do they? What sort of restrictions we're going to have on ourselves, on our businesses in the city centre moving forward. So we need to look at every opportunity we can to help and to see what we can facilitate.
So how can businesses feed into that process? I'm sure there is and will be a big consultation process, but what do you want from businesses to help you in your decision making?
Okay, well, I'm out there, city centre management. You can always get hold of myself through the authority, and I know some of the restaurants and other guest speakers have dealt with me during the Castle Street Cafe project. But I think that us and for Cardiff, we're the people, we want as many proposals put forward to us as possible, and we will be, like I say, as flexible as we can and proactive as we can.
Right. Um, tell me about, and this is the imponderable, what are your planning assumptions from the council's point of view about the end of the fire break? It's notionally a defined period, may go
Yeah.
long.
Well, we're told it's a defined period. I mean, you probably know as much as me. I mean, we're told it will only be the 2 weeks, but what we haven't heard is the detail of what that post 2 weeks picture looks like, and whether things outside areas outside Cardiff can then travel back in. That area restriction on Cardiff is really hurting the city centre, because we rely heavily, as everyone will know on this call, we rely heavily on our surrounding areas to feed into the city centre, where footfall was recovering. Actually, it was sort of 50-60%, up to sort of 75% at one stage of previous levels, before this latest sort of spike and round of lockdown. So we don't know what the next levels of restrictions will be, but that is vital, because we've got lots of plans. We really want to promote the city centre. We really want to promote Cardiff as a place to come in, enjoy Christmas, open for business at Christmas. We're going ahead with things like the Christmas market. We've got an activation inside the castle where we're going to have, it's not Winter Wonderland, but it is an attraction. But we're very limited on what we're allowed to do and we're allowed to promote currently.
We're all, through necessity, very focused on the short and near term. One of your other roles and remits is as Principal Officer for Inward Investment, in Cardiff for many years, 8 years or so now. Many tactics have been blown away by this pandemic, but how has your strategy changed? Have you thought about the longer term strategy? Has that been affected?
I think it will have an impact. It'll have an impact on how businesses, we heavily promote Cardiff to businesses who are looking to create jobs. Obviously, that's one of the main factors. We want people to come and create good quality jobs in the city centre. That has changed slightly, because I think the working from home aspect will have a bearing on that. But we are seeing still very good levels of interest in the city centre, or in Cardiff as a whole, actually, not just the city centre, which is probably some surprising in some ways, but really good. And with the work that's going on around Central Square and Central Quay, the other development sites, the parts of the city that are still developing, still being built. We think it's, post lockdown, so post this pandemic, I think we'll be in a very strong, good position, Cardiff as a city.
There's extraordinary resilience in the city and incredible belief likewise. For now, Richard, if I could ask you to step back, and we'll have you join again for the panel discussion. And as Anna comes forward, if I could just make the point again, please do use today as an opportunity as business owners to ask questions of all our panelists, but particularly for Richard and the council. Anna, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to this. That's so interesting to hear from Richard.
Well, these are interesting times. We're all trying to interpret, navigate, and manage our businesses through it. What's it been like for the Coconut Tree? How's this the last few months been for you as a business?
Well, I think, our big thing really was to want to come to Wales. Obviously, we are a very small organic business. We're very friends and family run, no investors, and everything we want to do slowly, and we want to do it well. So we've been open a year, and what a year it's been. And I think, I think what's amazing about working in Wales, and particularly in Cardiff, is the groups, the networking, the exposure, the forward thinkingness of everybody. And that's been inspirational. And really what happened was Michael Eddershaw, who owns where we are, based in Mill Lane, he owns quite a lot of that, Cope Brasserie, etc. He and his wife, Margaret, came to visit us when we first started. We were only sort of 3 months old, and the Observer foodie had picked us up as like the best value eats in the Southwest. And he's kind of in his 70s, lovely gentleman, and had said, we've found what you're doing, we've read the papers, and we'd love you to come to Cardiff. So really, it was a wonderful journey with a very understanding landlord who kind of gave us a really kind of graceful place to position ourselves. We're a very unknown food, so for us, it's really about getting people to sample our dishes and understand what Sri Lankan cuisine is all about. The Sunday Times and the Great British Chefs have kind of cited it as the biggest food trend in the UK in 2020. So, we were sort of on a crest of a wave, and enjoying rather what we did, and being on that street, particularly on Mill Lane, where I think where we were, our outside section, we worked really, the highways and the council was so good at asking us to, we wanted to invest in the outside space. I think it just been an area for nothing, particularly sort of driving in deliveries and a lot of bins. So hopefully we did some good there.
Yeah, and tell me about, well, let's talk about your Christmas plans first of all. What are you assuming about Christmas, and how are you approaching that in terms of bookings, what people can do and so on?
I think you can only approach Christmas in one way. I get a lot of people say to me, oh my God, Christmas is cancelled. And I'll just say two things, Christmas is extended. I think you've got to take that spirit and really drive it through. Sri Lankan hospitality is really very warm and friendly. So, we did two things. We've extended our ETAT to help out to the end of January. And we've also extended Christmas to the end of January. So we're working on our dishes, which is really all that hospitality can do. And I think for us, it's about introducing everybody to our food. So we created our ho-ho hopper, which is made of beetroot, and it's we're very much about freshly cooked warm Sri Lankan food, and it's a very red, bright red with an egg in the middle, coconut sort of bowl-shaped pancake, and we're very much street food that you lots of small dishes you put together. So for us, it's really about putting what you can into the Christmas spirit, and making sure that you stick to all the government guidelines, and really, we will adapt to whatever comes our way, but it's about being flexible, but still planning what it is that you do, which is your food, really, and your cocktails.
Tell us about the business as a whole. I think you began in Cheltenham, you've got two places in Bristol, there's Bournemouth, Oxford, you mentioned Cardiff from June last year. Possibly Bath, maybe national, but is all that on hold at the moment and you're just getting through this period? How are you approaching it as a business owner?
Well, we're in a very different place than we were in March, when we basically are, a very big group of people who are all in the business, almost a bit like a cooperative, if you like, with lots of different skills. And it's about, we really want to champion Sri Lankan food in the UK, and that's really what we set out to achieve. And, coming into Wales was a big part of that. And we've been incredibly busy. And I think, where we go from here is strategically, you have to think ahead. So we are thinking ahead. Cash is really king. When we get to March, every penny of any profit we make goes back into the business. So, we had expanded very quickly, but, very organically. And we take our head chefs and we make sure every chef is trained. They're mostly all our Sri Lankan chefs. And, in fact, our head chef is in Cardiff right now, working on development of our food and consistency, and that's really important to us. And so, we're thinking strategically, and we're looking to purchase, but cash is really king in this situation. And I think that's the hardest part for an independent, is to have the cash to take you through these kind of difficult restrictions. And, whilst we can concentrate on that and hope for the best, there's a little bit of kind of luck involved, to be honest.
There's a little bit of luck. There's also an awful lot of hope, I suspect, for all of us, that hope may not be a strategy, but it certainly does help in these times. Anna, for now, thank you. And let's bring Graham forward, Artistic Director of the Wales Millennium Centre. And Graham, it has to be said that perhaps of all the areas, the arts has been the most affected. You cannot bring people together, and that is at the core of the offering. But the stats are quite bleak, that you have had as an organisation. I think it's £20 million estimated loss of ticket revenue and about 85% of income. Given that, how has this time been for you and the team?
Well, Greg, and thanks, and hi to everyone else too. Look, it's been really tough. I mean, it will change Wales Millennium Centre forever, I think. So in terms of what we've had to do, we've had to look at sort of changing our business model, changing how we view the future. We don't know when our main source of income will come back, which is 1,900 people together, very close in a big theatre. So what we have been doing is working with young people, communities and artists in different ways. So, for example, some of the main content we've been able to provide has been made by young people who run a radio station that we have in Wales Millennium Centre, and they took all of their kit home to their bedrooms and have been creating content for the last 6 months. So it's look, it's been a huge challenge. We had to make redundancies. 63 full-time staff, and we then got emergency funding, which has allowed us to retain our remaining 92 staff.
And that emergency funding, that was only last week?
It was last week. And that funding, which was 3.4 million plus some capital as well, which we need to make investments and changes to the building for the future. That allows us to carry on for a year. And then at that point, we will need our main source of income to have returned fully or near as damn it fully to be able to then trade on. However, I think that as others have mentioned, it was time to get creative. And what we're planning to do is open WMC up as a community asset. And I mean, this was evidence, for example, we used our outside space under our kind of famous canopy and with Butte Town Carnival for community picnics for 30 people. We wouldn't have done that had it not been for this. And I think the kind of power that Wales Millennium Centre has as a national arts centre is as a convener and to connect people and bring them together. Now, we have an 8-acre site, and we want to sweat every inch of that to give opportunities for people to be creative, opportunities for retail too, and opportunities for communities to come together, now in a socially distanced way for the time being. And we are working with government. I'm part of a kind of group tasked with reopening major events. And we need to test and pilot events safely for people early in the new year, starting with, say, 100 people in a cabaret format on our stage, and then grow that through the months so that we can open safely to 1,800 people, because we cannot flick a switch and get 1,800 people back in the building safely. A lot of work has to go into that.
Well, there's presumably two broad elements. One is the logistics from your side, from your team point of view, that you can get the egress and access and so on, the throughput, the managing of all of that. But two, the psychological from Hunter's point of view, will they feel comfortable about going out environment? So the approach perhaps aids both, but certainly the latter.
Absolutely. So the more work we can do, and the more detailed we are over time, the more we'll be able to build up public confidence.
Yeah.
But we need to demonstrate that we've had events and there have been no cases coming out of those events over time, unless there's a vaccine, of course, in which case we'd be able to open sooner. But the live events sector, the music venues in the city, for example, theatres, the stadium, Moat Point Arena, are in a desperate situation. We're fortunate in the sense that we're a charity and we receive public funding and we've got emergency funding that we can work with. And others on this call aren't so fortunate in that regard. So although this has hit us in a disproportionately big way, we do have that safety net of government support and Arts Council support. And that gives us a foundation from which to build, and we will have to rebuild, but we will rebuild on some of the things we're planning to. So, for example, we'll focus a lot more on digital content. We are intending to build a facility for young people to learn in and to be creative within. So a kind of a suite of creative spaces that young people would run by themselves for themselves, and make things in and learn within, learn by doing. So actually being closed for a while in terms of our what was our main activity, commercial activity, does allow us opportunities to develop other work which we had been planning, which we may be able to do quicker than we'd envisaged.
And in that respect, it's a little bit like the observation by Richard that some things are brought forward that may already have been in play, but even more so now. I wanted to ask you, you're involved with a very big, iconic, massively important organisation. I don't doubt that there is just extraordinary support through the city. It may not always percolate through to you personally, but undoubtedly it's there and through the country. But I want to come back that we're all flesh and blood, and I want to talk to you ask you about that moment when you heard you had the funding. Where were you, and what was your reaction at that point?
Oh, last week, you mean? I was at home. I mean, immediately we knew we were going to hear about funding on that day. We're the biggest arts organisation in the country, so it was highly unlikely that we were not going to get the guts of what we asked for, and we were very detailed in how we asked for it. So it was a huge relief, though, because we were able to immediately notify staff who were at risk of redundancy that their jobs were safe. Mm-hmm. So that was, previous months, we'd had to do consultations with staff on Zoom, and not being able to be physically in contact with people was horrible. Yeah. And indeed, seeing some people leave the organisation without being able to really properly say goodbye was awful, and we're going to have to really think about how we keep in touch with people when we're able to physically as well. So it was huge relief, but it gave us that opportunity to actually plan for a better future. So some of the things that we asked for money for example, were we want to embed more creative people within the organisation. The situation facing freelancers in our industry, in the creative industries, is so critical. There's limited support being available to freelancers, and that will run out soon, with little prospect of work returning. So we want to make artists part of our work, not in terms of just employing artists to make things, but being part of what we do and how we think about what we do. So we'll be going out in a few weeks to try to make an intervention there. So it does allow us. I think what Richard says is interesting, because we're almost like a microcosm of a city. I mean, there are 1,200 people on our site in any given day, because we have 8 residence organizations as well. And we look at our site and think, how can we reframe it and repurpose it, open it up more? What has happened to our society mean in terms of how people make their way into the city, how much time they spend in work? Do we need the office space that we currently have? All of these things that are big macro considerations for city centres, for example, are things that we're having to think hard about at the minute, and we need to take time over that.
Well, Graham, we obviously, everyone on this call and thousands of others, I'm sure, wish you and the team all the very best. These are exceptionally tough times, of course, but yours, as described, is amongst the toughest, which I personally have heard. The opportunity, nonetheless, which you've expressed to stand back and find different creative routes through is actually really inspiring. So, all best wishes to you. I'll ask you to perhaps come off camera now, and we'll have you back for the panelist session and bring forward Jay Page from The Botanist. WMC's plans are currently expecting to be back at some point in April, but who knows, everything is contingent at the moment. But Jay, talking of plans and so on, when you opened The Botanist 7 weeks before lockdown in Feb of this year, no one knew, of course, but what was your planning assumption through the year, and how dramatically has that changed compared with the original opening plans?
I mean, yeah, like you said, it was a massive shock. So 7 weeks opening of this brand new, beautiful business, flagship of our company in the UK. It stopped a lot because we have between, I think it's like 2 months, 2.5 months of an opening process of a diary of what we do as a business, first of all. So it's all about like the standards. Obviously, there's a lot of training involved, opening parts of the business up slowly and then building them gradually so we can get to that kind of perfect serve almost. So from the point of closing after 7 weeks, it cut our opening schedule in half. And then obviously it stopped a lot of the very kind of unique things that we do as well. So we do like a lot of classes, not necessarily based on food or drink either. So it's like, you know, if it was like florals and wreath makings and candle makings and very kind of fun and unique sort of ways of enjoying it, like kind of a pub environment. So all this has had to stop. I'm sitting back, say for example, I'm on LinkedIn or getting the newsletters from the rest of the venues, and I'm watching these brunches and these classes happen. I'm just sat there going, well, I'm going to open the doors and we're going to have a lovely lunchtime and a lovely dinner time as much as we can. And like, you know, like the others have said, hopefully plan them for 2021 for a little bit more normality.
Yeah. And how has the Eat Out to Help Out, how did that help your business then? And what of that have you been intending to continue?
I mean, the way I look at it is, like I said to you earlier, I look everything in a positive sort of way. So from my point of view, like I said, we opened 7 weeks. So a lot of people didn't get the opportunity to come and see us in our open period. So I kind of used it as a marketing campaign. Come and see us, come and try us out, have a bit of money off. Yes, it is paid for by the government, but, you know, giving that kind of fun factor back to our customers and potential new customers. And with that, then we did a little extension project with it into the month afterwards. So we only offered 25% off Monday to Wednesday, but we saw a lot of return and a lot of customers talking to us saying we came through Eat Out to help out. We came back to continue to eat out to help out, and we really enjoyed our time last time because we never got the opportunity to book in beforehand because you were so busy. So like I said, everything I'm looking at the moment is just a complete positive.
Yeah, and I guess what happened with that is that many hospitality places have always had differential pricing, different days, different offers and so on. But the Eat Out Help Out, in a sense, almost legitimise that. And you think, well, okay, I can drop a bit of margin but gain volume. Net, it makes sense. That's presumably how you've approached it?
Yeah, I mean, it is and it's not. I mean, obviously we've got to look at it in the respect of, like so many other places have said, they've had to make staff redundant and people are losing money, they're on furlough schemes. But yeah, it is looking at like kind of the net borders on it, but still trying to show what we do as best as we do as a company as well. I mean, I'm fortunate. I do have other venues around the UK that kind of back us as a company, and we aren't kind of stuck as an independent worrying day to day, as much as we do worry day to day, because we've still got to look after the rest of the UK as well.
Yeah, clearly the pandemic has changed much, but perhaps not everything. Are you still blighted by no-shows that so many in the sector are hit by?
Yes, do you know what? At the beginning, I was really, really happy. Probably like four to six covers in a lunchtime, for example, and then I'm reading in kind of these bar and hospitality groups, 120 covers at lunch, 160 at dinner in some places. One venue, very, very small boutique bar, 70% of their bookings didn't turn up in one day. And then I thought, do you know what, am I lucky here? And then as I looked at it, they started rising and rising. And then somebody showed me, it's one of those Facebook posts you kind of want to believe is true, but you don't want to believe is true at the same time. And people were multiple booking restaurants and bars, and then they were paying the deposits on them, and then they were selling the deposits in Facebook groups. So say, for example, it's £10 per person to sit at a table. If you are paying the deposit, they were selling it for £20 per person deposit. I haven't seen any in Cardiff, luckily, but the other parts of the UK have seen this happen, which was quite annoying. But obviously then people are also willing to lose that deposit because they've gone and eaten somewhere else. But it's not the case for us as a business to be sustainable over this time.
I mean, very, very roughly, what proportion of no-shows do you think you get in what, if there is a word like typical, but some sort of normal week?
Percentage-wise, it's hard to say at the moment. I mean, it's like anything between 5 and 10% of the week, which could be no-shows at the moment. But on the flip side, we do a lot of bar bookings, and where we are very lucky to have a large outdoor space, people are booking tables and then they're not actually claiming their table, they're just going straight outside, for example. So it is hard to judge if it is 5-10%, it could be 20%, for example.
Yeah, in your notes about this, when you agreed to be one of our panelists, you said that you're taking bookings for Christmas. Well, fair enough, fly that flag, but what are your expectations for Christmas?
I mean, when we spoke about it a few months ago, we were talking about Christmas and how excited we are, because this is our first Christmas as well, of course. We have kind of changed our approach towards it. We've essentially kind of added festive dishes to our main menu, whereas previous years, the company and a lot of other companies are the same. They would have your standard menu, a festive menu, a buffet menu, you know, your 3 courses, your 2 courses, all the rest of it. We've reintroduced our turkey hanging kebab, for example, which does very well across the other sites. And then we're just adding a few other dishes. So it's hard to say how we're going to do it, because obviously we've got the tables of 6 situation of bookings. But we are looking at a lot more like friendship groups, hopefully, if we can do this outside the household situation. And companies maybe splitting up teams and going out for lunches and dinners and, you know, potentially looking at that earlier trade and going from the kind of...
Let's just take that latter point, companies and Christmas. What is your approach, your group's approach to companies, say, breaking their teams into no more than 6, but all in the same place at the same time? If you have, you know, 10 groups of 6 or something in a very large restaurant like yours, would you accept that, or would you say, come on, that's outside the spirit? It's
a difficult situation on that one, because as a salesperson, I want to say yes, but morally, part of me wants to say no. We've all got our work bubbles, we all have our family bubbles, and I think when you're crossing over, like you said, about 60 people, for example, bringing them into a hospitality environment, yes, they work together, that's fine, but then you bring in that kind of, it's almost like work air, a work bubble into the restaurant. I think it's a lot of people to look at, unless you've got that kind of private space, maybe. I mean, at the moment, I'm still working on the tables of 6, and I think I think it's the way forward to be safe, to get through Christmas, and hopefully to prevent having any more sort of circuit breakers or lockdowns in the new year.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. You imagine it. Okay, it's smaller numbers. Say it's 2 groups of 6, and you know they're both from the same company. You can physically put them in different parts. Would you accept that booking?
Yeah, I think on the smaller numbers, and you know the way the track and trace is done, and as long as we follow all the procedures, those sort of smaller bookings, I can't see why not. I mean, we obviously, with table situations in the venue, we've set out table plans, so we haven't got a lot of big tables, for example, because obviously there's not a lot of big bookings at the moment. But where we can, and if we can, yes, we will. But I think when it gets to a certain number, it's looking a little bit dangerous, I'd probably say. Yeah, it's just one of those anomalies at the margin. If it's no more than 6, then fine. But if it's several, just under 6 is maybe, I guess. But we're all, you say morally and commercially, we're all trying to navigate what is right in the circumstances. It's what's right, and we want to continue to the new year. At the same time, we want to keep everybody as happy as they can be, really. And you've got to generate business, as all of us have in these times. Jay, if I ask you to hold on, let's bring back in Graham, Anna, and Richard. And we'll have a quick chat. Please do pop any questions through for all our panelists. Hello, our esteemed panelists. I want to ask you a question in that area, to some extent, I was talking to Jay about just there, is the fire break.
do you support the fire break? It's a much more rigorous approach than the rest of the UK has undergone, what the Welsh government has done. What's your view of it? I don't know if I don't know if we had a quick break there, a quick circuit break, but did you? I don't know if you heard the question. Do you support the fire break?
I'll answer that one. I think I do. When I look at other parts of the UK, I think there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot more questions, whereas we are closed for 2 weeks. I mean, it's hard work and it's trying, mental health and obviously in your pocket as well. But I think we know where we're standing. He's said that we are going to be reopened on the 9th of November. And I think it's nice that we've got a goal date to reopen and plan for that date. Whereas I think a lot of people with this tier system in England, they don't know where they stand to a certain point, and I think it's just too much confusion in it, basically. So I think we're winning on that one.
Anna, I mean, you're trading in both countries, England and Wales, and so you're operating under different jurisdictions, and then possibly even within cities, different jurisdictions. Would you prefer the clarity, albeit there's a loss of business, or are you navigating through the complexities of the different tiers and so on?
I think, it's a very difficult one, isn't it? I would love the UK to be united in what it's doing, but then you have to work with the infection rate. So to some extent, I don't think any government would be doing it perfectly. It's such a unique and a strange environment the world finds itself. So, to be going with whatever each country is wanting to do, or each county, or what's relevant, I think it's about remaining flexible, doing what you can. I think the government did do us a good turn in hospitality. I feel desperate for the arts, the entertainment, the live music industry, festivals. I also work with some of those, and that it's difficult for them, and especially small traders. But I think we need to be flexible. We'll do everything we can. It's about a passion to stay alive and keep through it. I think using networks like Visit Cardiff, the amazing networks that Cardiff has, is really important for people to come together. Networks like this, and kind of brainstorm things. I'd love to brainstorm with the council and create ideas, having seen other things in England. I think Cardiff are well ahead of the curve to some extent.
So separate to the fire break, do you think that the 10 o'clock curfew actually works
in hospitality?
In the city, basically.
To be honest, for us particularly, and trading, in different locations, and being very, I think the one thing that has hurt is the fact that where that 10 o'clock scientific reason came from. And I think, I saw other countries do it, especially in Europe. And I don't know what that science reason was behind it. We have licensing in this country for a reason. We've been doing it for many, many years to disperse crowds, to do all of that. So my question would be, and I can't talk particularly for the nightclubs which are closed, or pubs which are serving just alcohol, but you want to keep people from being all over each other. But in a restaurant environment, to take away your kind of third table turn and to expect to be pushing your guests out at 9:10, because it takes you some time to be charged such high prices for having one person in your restaurant 1 minute after 10, and the customer not knowing why you're trying to jolly them out, because to get rid of 100 people within half an hour is nearly impossible. So I just think even if they'd given 10:30 to hospitality in a restaurant environment, it would have been easier to manage and you wouldn't be upsetting the customer. And I don't understand what the half an hour difference would have made. That's a personal thing. The rest of it is scientific, but I don't know the rest of the panel. Richard, what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because that 10 o'clock total lockdown caused us quite a few problems, actually, because it just meant that everyone was on the street at the same time, which we've managed to get past that sort of point in the past where it used to be 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the city centre, and that was it. But we'd gone past that, so the all out by 10 did cause some additional strain around the sort of takeaway parts of the centre. It's an interesting one, because I mean I know England went for the 10 o'clock, everyone doors shut, everyone out. That was the route the Welsh government were going along, and until the First Minister decided he was going to give people time to drink up, which was another interesting one, which came out of the blue. But there we are. That's how it was. I think going back to just the earlier point about is lockdown a good thing? I don't think the Cardiff only lockdown was working. So, and a lot of businesses said to me, we'd rather be told to shut completely rather than just trying to trade with Cardiff only levels of business, because it just wasn't viable. But they also didn't want to be seen to be shut when other people were open. So the feedback I was getting certainly from the pub trade especially was they'd rather be told to shut and then let's open up in a more sustainable manner in a couple of weeks' time. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah, I think there's quite a body of people who say, I don't like it, but I prefer certainty. At least I know where I am. Whereas companies trading in England, it could be today. They're announced they're closed this weekend type of thing, which is, you can't plan on that basis, I guess. And Graham, talk to us about how this time has been for you personally, separate to the organisation, in terms of yourself being a sociable animal out in the city and so on. What has it been like in the evenings in Cardiff for you personally?
Well, we've rarely been out. So, we've three boys, 16, 14 and 11. So the impact on them has been considerable. So personally, we've had all that thing trying to manage schooling from home. My wife works as well, so 2 people at home working on Zooms, and you've got three children running around. They jump on their Xboxes and stuff, and everything slows down. You lose. It's just been a challenge in that regard, just from a personal point of view. But as I said, I just think we're lucky, and the boys have responded really well. And my wife and I are lucky that we are working and we have been able to work. We are able to connect with other people at work digitally. So I've been able to do my job from home. It's been great, and that is something that we're all going to have to consider doing more of in the future. And indeed, the First Minister has made good noises about wanting after this more people to work from home.
And then there's the potential knock-on effect. Working from home, at least some of the time, means fewer people in the city centre, which means it will have an impact in some way on the eventual nighttime economy of Cardiff. Is that you can't factor it in, I guess, but are you apprehensive about that for perhaps for Jay and for Anna, about the impact on people being more in their immediate areas, which are not really the city centre, certainly early part of the week? Is that a concern?
In a way, but I do think that this retail was disappearing from city centres before this. And this has accelerated, not in terms of bars and restaurants, actually, but other parts of the retail sector. So I just think we have to rethink cities. Quite
okay. That small challenge, Richard.
Yeah.
You've got to rethink cities, and I'm sure that's top of your in tray. Impossible question, but other than points you've talked about already, what do you think the sort of topography, vibe, culture of the city centre of Cardiff will be in a couple of years? What will be different then than now?
Well, one of the biggest things I think you just touched on, I think the less working, or daytime working population in the city centre will have an impact. Businesses will need to adjust. It's interesting what you say about retail. Parts of me agree, but parts of the retail in the city centre was actually starting to recover really well over the summer. And whether that was just a kickback because people could finally get out and shop again, where they'd only been allowed to online shop. In some ways, I think this is invigorated the sort of shopping experience for a lot of people, because they know they can do things online, and they've had to do it for the last 6 to 8 months. But the feeling of going out and shopping and seeing and shopping in the old sense is actually talking to the people like St. David's too, they have seen a real upset. And what it's meant is the shoppers they were seeing were actually spending money.
Yeah.
There was a lot less just sort of what they could, well, I can't remember, think of the saying is, but there was less window shopping. It was more actual shopping.
Yeah, and we've certainly had that feedback at Cardiff Life, that when it comes to retail, there is a slight paradox going on there, that because we've all experienced online shopping more than previously, we're all realizing just how soulless and transactional that is. There is no human intercession at all. Whereas retail, you actually do talk, you see, you touch, you feel, you choose. And the happenstance of shopping is distinct from
on that, Greg,
pure buying. Yeah.
Come back in terms of what I mean. I was probably talking about maybe a 20-year prediction rather than an immediate one. And I think that what people are responding to is those experiences which are authentic. So what I think cities will, what people will come more into cities for is authentic shopping experiences, and not necessarily in big department stores and so on. I think the potential for small local businesses in city centres is big.
Yeah.
And I think so that is a positive rather than a negative. I just think rethinking cities in those terms is what I'm referring to, not that there'll be no retail per se, maybe not retail as we know it.
Yeah,
there is an element of a cultural shift happening, that we've all been forced to think more locally, to experience the city differently, to experience it on foot, to in some cases fall back in love with the city again. The lockdown has made everything local. Our lives have become local, but our cities have become more local to us, and the theory is that will have quite a profound effect commercially as well as sort of culturally. But tell me this, for those of you, the three on this side of my screen, so Jay, Anna and Graham, your world overlaps in that you are inherently sociable, your offering is enjoyable, it's about hospitality, sociability, entertainment and so on. How do you approach that? And perhaps in your case, Graham, how will you approach that with your teams when it comes to creating that feeling of enjoyment in the broader sense, when you're wearing visors or masks, or you're getting people to sign in, and all the strictures that are in place currently? Can it still be enjoyable? How have you approached that?
I mean, from our point of view, especially with my job, so before lockdown, I was business development manager, but when I've come back, I'm essentially a host on the front door, which I'm fine with. What we find is with people with asking about masks, signing in, track and trace, all the rest of it, is making it relatable to you as a human being, and not trying to be this governing body on the person walking in going, are you wearing a mask? Have you done track and trace? Can you do this? Can you do this? Have a little moan with them. Yeah, it's a pain. Yeah, we've got to rework your face, and have a bit of a chat with them about it. But I think making it a bit of a joke, as in like a personal joke with how you're dealing with it every day. Like, my favorite thing to say is I shout when I wear a mask so you can hear me over the noise of the bar. But when I go home then I carry on shouting at everybody in my house.
Oh, that's good.
It's a little bit, it's only something, but I think it just relaxes them when they walk into the venue, and then they don't think they're in a contained box of PPE, basically. And
Anna, for you and your team, you're a particularly friendly bunch. It's exactly part of the culture and the vibe of the Coconut Tree. Have you felt sort of inhibited or restricted by these times?
I think you've got to find your way through it. So, you can have your perspex screens. I think what's really important here, and what we've really worked on, is things like, we're really big kind of big groups, party environment, and a table for two, but it's all about the vibe as well as our amazing freshly cooked food. And sharing was a big thing. So now we've worked on smaller plates that you can have individually. But, if you're coming in your group of 6 and you are a household, then, going to share and enjoy that experience anyway. But the whole kind of wearing the mask, well, our boys all wear crazy T-shirts with crazy things that they want to tell people on the back of their T-shirts. So, it's very sort of comedic and fun, and very sort of like you're on a beach in a street food environment in Sri Lanka. So I think, for me, it was things like we used to have our music up, we used to have really work on our tunes. So we've worked on things like the music being loud but not too loud. So in effect, you don't want to be, talking too much to people, but explaining the menu. So we've kind of honed down the experience to be able to kind of limit the contact, but make sure when you deliver it at the table, is exactly right and on point. And I think people like that anyway, because you're getting this kind of sense of person and you feel safe. So it's about that balance, which is now different to where we were before.
Graham, I'll come to you in a moment about that cultural aspect, about how you might be operating and thinking differently, because I know that Richard has to go pretty shortly. So I'm going to ask each of the three of you, if you've got questions for Richard, for the council, about additional things they might be able to do or might think about, now is the opportunity. Who'd like to come forward? Don't all rush.
Well, I think, and this will probably be my final point as well, so I have to go at 11, is that I think culture can play a huge role in kind of reanimating city centres. And I think not just in theatres, cinemas and so on, but actually on the streets. And and that's when I think about city centres of the future, places where you can go, we value parks more, don't we? I think. Times we went to Butte Park during the last few months as a family were great on our bikes from Vale of Glamorgan. But in the music strategy of the city, bring the city alive, have music coming out when you get off the train at the train station, just so that we can feel the kind of power of culture and art every day on our streets.
Maybe, Graham, to pick up one of your great achievements, make Cardiff the city of the unexpected all the time.
Absolutely. So when you go around a street corner and something happens that you weren't expecting, and it's a little moments that are serendipitous like that in our cities.
Yeah.
Help.
There you are, Richard. How about that as a branding exercise for Cardiff? The city of the unexpected.
Well, we are on top. Well, not on top, but we are working with the likes of Graham, and we have got a music strategy, and we absolutely agree. The arts and music is key to doing something a bit different in the city, and yeah, absolutely, 100% behind that.
Yeah, and Anna and Jay, anything perhaps from a business perspective you would like the council to be doing more of, or something new that they might do?
Go on.
Sorry, Jay. I think that just quickly two things for me, which is one to kind of I think I totally agree with Graham. What a brilliant idea to bring, experiential art to life, and all the things that Cardiff celebrates. The fact that it's one of the cities in the whole of the UK where you can step out of a train station and everything's there, from yourselves to, everything. It's just extraordinary. And that you can use that whole vicinity to create it. And I think also celebrate the great taste of Cardiff, somehow by, maybe that's a visual thing of all the amazing restaurants and food and the arts, and kind of separate them. And the only one thing I'd like to say, which I know there's different, probably it's highways, but Mill Lane, we're right on the edge of that beautiful kind of precipice of Coat, and then John Lewis, and then the Ivy, is to kind of make that somehow more exciting and not less like, it has a bit of a reputation, I guess, but it's such a beautiful location. And, I know that we're having problems with electricity, like all sorts of things like that. Any kind of advice about how to help us with that on the outside of that, the pedestrian walkway would be really marvellous. Jay, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, sorry, it was a good point. And basically the same sort of thing I was going to say, that it was great over this time that we've expanded outdoor spaces into the streets, and it's given this lovely cafe culture to the whole city. And I think going on with what Graham and Richard said then, with the surprise element, the music and all the theatre behind it, tying all that together will just give Cardiff such a different outlook. I mean, obviously something to look forward to next summer, I guess, really, isn't it?
It's almost turning the whole city into a theatre, I guess. It is living culture. And to Anna's point, I think in my experience of other cities, Cardiff's got that magnificent opportunity, because you open the city out from the station and you're just there. Everything is so walkable, and it's such a compact and beautiful city.
That was the reason City of the Unexpected worked in Cardiff, where it wouldn't have worked in Birmingham. Because you can walk around the whole of the city. It's got a beautiful park and a castle whack bang in the middle of it, and a massive 80,000 capacity stadium. Where else are you going to get that? That's incredible. You've Cardiff, and it's all within walking distance, and you've got those arcades in the middle of it.
You should do my job. I said you do my job.
Well, we're ending on positive in these, frankly quite dark times. I wonder if any of our panelists have got one last other positive observation from these times, which we haven't touched on previously. Otherwise, we'll wrap.
I'm good.
Enjoy Christmas.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the year.
You know, with the ingenuity, the resilience, the determination, but the backdrop of an extraordinary city, this has been, personally, I found it really sort of heartwarming, your positivity despite these times. And, you know, that will help buoy everyone through. And I hope people watching this have taken as much as, you know, I certainly have, and I know our team will have done as well at Cardiff Life. Thank you to our panelists for your candour and as I say, your positivity in these times. So our thanks to Richard Hyatt, to Anna Garrett, Graham Farrow and Joe Page. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, also thank you for your time. Please look out for our next Cardiff Life Business Club and those new Cardiff Life Awards and Cardiff Property Awards announcements we'll have shortly. Best wishes to all our panellists and to all involved in hospitality, the arts, retail and Cardiff's nighttime economy. Good luck, good wisdom to all. Please get your nominations in if you're active in the property sector, of course, for the Cardiff Property Awards. But enough, we're done. This has been a Media Clash production, and this has been the Cardiff Life Business Club. Thank you. Cardiff together.